Genius. I had the mute on.
Let's dance. All right. Cool with me starting to record?
Yeah.
3, 2. TPC 116 with my buddy, Paul Whitcombe. What's today? Man, I really need to start writing down the date. I think June 16th?
All day, my brother.
June 16th, 2020, 4:29 p.m. Eastern Time. TPC 116 with Paul Whitcombe as of this morning. So apparently it's not nearly as bad as, well, I don't actually know. I haven't checked the news. But I woke up this morning, and because I'm a technology addicted millennial, in the 30 seconds I went to the restroom, I checked my phone and I saw that North Korea had bombed something in South Korea. And so the first thing I did was make sure that thermonuclear war hadn't kicked off. And I realized that I didn't need to look on my phone for that because the fact I was alive said that didn't happen. I saw it was a liaison office, and that was it. I think I texted you, and I think I texted the Delta Force guy. And text Paul so we can talk about it today. Text Dale in case shit hits the fan, and go back to sleep. I woke up and my other friend texted me and he was like, you hear what happened? I was like, yeah, did North Korea bomb South Korea? He was like, what? No, they blew up something of their own. So now, after that little rant, I don't actually know what happened, and I've kind of unplugged from the news because it's been seemingly so negative for the past 3 weeks that I don't actually know what happened. So I'll stop word vomiting and I'll let you have a chance to talk.
Well, when we talked this morning, there were three things that were super concerning in the news. The first was the North Korea situation. The second was the China-India situation. And the third being China is shutting down schools and universities in Beijing again because of a new wave of the coronavirus. So it's just like the 2020 is just getting worse every day.
I think this is going to be a year-long phenomena. I don't think 2020 is a tease. I think it came in here to fuck us for a whole 12 months. That's what I think, man. Everyone kind of knew there'd be a second wave. Right. But how predictable was the second wave in the United States? And I'm not even talking about for or against BLM protests or riots or what did happen at Georgia Floyd. I'm not going into any of those details or the political trenches that have already been drawn, which are drawn for everything now. I'm just talking about humans not socially isolate or socially distancing. How predictable was that? And it's happening. Everyone's recording record highs now.
I just got off the phone with a client in Atlanta who said that her daughter went to an emergency care, one of those now care places, and there were 100 people in line.
Oh, Jesus.
All to be tested for corona.
Oh, Jesus.
So
yeah.
that's not a good thing.
Man,
it's not a good thing at all. And we may be headed back into another wave of shutdowns and lockdowns and all that stuff. It's just still not over here in Illinois.
No, here in Maryland, I think that I think our gym is opening Friday, which has been closed since March 7th. So
it's only open here if you have a personal trainer. So the wealthy people can go, but the rest of us, we can't.
So the wealthy stay healthy, as is the time-honored human tradition.
They that got. Yeah. Those that don't, and that's the way it's always been.
You have it, you got it, and if you don't, you won't. But yeah, man, so what all happened with North Korea and South Korea? What?
Well, it's been building up for a while.
It's been building up for 50 years.
For 50 years, but North Korea is misbehaving. They have a line of communication that's just one literal phone line.
Yeah.
Because they don't talk to each other. They don't officially recognize the other's existence.
Children.
So a couple weeks ago, North Korea just physically cut that line. So that is symbolic at best. But,
sure.
And then this morning, they had this little, I think it was more like a small building, maybe a hut, that was in the North Korean territory.
Okay.
That was supposed to be a liaison center for whatever liaisoning they do with the South Koreans.
Yeah.
And they've been threatening to blow it up for a while now. And they just went in and flattened it. So yes, it was on their own territory. It was a symbolic act of violence, but thank God, not a direct act of violence.
Okay, so that's a lot better. I thought it was, because even despite how unadvanced, how technologically retarded, and not in some socially unacceptable way to say that, but actually like technologically like retarded the nation is, their growth has been retarded by their own and outside factors. It's known that they have like, don't they have like 1,500 like artillery guns like trained on Seoul? So it's like, and shells are, I mean, they're still the hardest thing to defend against. Missiles, I mean, you can track them. Hypersonics, which have been in the news lately, but shells, I mean, how cheap they are and how quickly you can fire off a salvo. Shells are still old technology that still works in terms of like, you can't really protect against it unless you're in a hardened bunker. Well, they have them trained on targets. So at any given time, it's just like, I mean, there could be, and I'm sure South Korea's got missile artillery trained on those artillery, but at any given time, they can unleash a deathly salvo, an artillery barrage in downtown Seoul. So that's what I thought it was. That's what I thought it was when I saw that. I was like, oh no. Oh no. But
thank God it wasn't, right?
Yeah.
The next step, of course, is the North Korean army, which is huge. It's one of the biggest in the world. There's pouring over the DMZ, and we're obligated by treaty
to protect South Korea.
Yes.
And the CCP is going to be behind North Korea. So it's just
right. And, we think that we have 3 aircraft carriers in the Pacific to intimidate China, but they'd be headed right to the Korean Peninsula if something like that happened.
Yeah, man. Have you ever listened to George Carlin? I always get it messed. Who's the comedian? Is the comedian
George Carlin? Okay,
the historian Dan Carlin. Have you ever listened to Dan Carlin? I'm sorry.
A little bit, yeah.
Have you ever listened to his World War I podcast? It's like,
no, I've never been much a World War I guy, which is surprising because my other grandfather was older and he was a soldier in World War I, but I never did.
It is, neither was I. I don't think anyone was. Yeah, my mom's great grandfather, I think he or his brother died on the Western Front. But yeah, it's so overshadowed by the Second World War. Dan Carlin's, I think it's 5 episodes, 4 hours each, called Blueprints for Armageddon, part 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Oh my God. You will be a World War I buff after that. I never was, because I usually look back at it and it's just like, I mean, not making light of war, but in terms of just like, what interests all of us, the logistics, the weapons, the World War II is just so much sexier. It was more devastating.
Helmets were much cooler.
Yeah, helmets were cooler. Not biplanes. You got fighter jets. You got rockets. You got you got the whole shebang. World War I kind of just it's always like, yeah, that was like the prelude, dude.
Trench fighting and horses.
Yeah. We chlorine gas. Yeah, we got it. The doughboys. Okay, yeah. What, dude? Listen to this. I swear, if you start it, just start it. And that's how I started. I was like, I'll give it a try because I heard Rogan keep talking about it. I finally listened to it, man. I could not stop listening to it. I finished it and then I started it again. So over the course of like 2 weeks, I listened to all 20 hours twice. It is not history in the way that like you think it is. The way he presents it and just the stories he goes into and the descriptions, and so he's reading letters from soldiers and he's going in and explaining it, and he's explaining it in terms of how we look back at it, World War II, and you get an understanding and an appreciation for World War I, that World War I, to me now, it is now at the forefront. World War II is like, yeah, whatever, World War II. World War I is like, that's the shit in terms of like being interested in wars. At least for me, my interest completely flipped after I listened to that.
Well, I may have to look into that. My grandfather had a first cousin who fell at Somme in France, and he's buried there.
Yeah.
So I looked at it a little bit from the genealogy, and I had my grandfather's doughboy helmet and some of his stuff.
Oh, really?
But My grandmother gave it to the neighbor boy. I'm still mad about that.
That's how this stuff tends to happen.
But that was a pre-modern medicine war.
Yeah.
So battlefield medicine must have been mostly just amputations, right?
Dude, you need to listen to this. It is apparently this is where Tolkien got a lot of his inspiration for constructing Middle Earth.
Really?
Yeah. And Carlin talks about that. This isn't like my opinion on it. He talks about, because you can get letters from, or like journal entries from Tolkien, and you hear about it and the way it's just, and you're just like, this is Middle Earth. You're like, these are the orcs. This is like the siege. But it's what, dude, and the psychological, and just like, it was like the first industrialized war. So you have this, he talks about this, and there's, you can't spoil it. There's this like, there's almost this like hangover from like Revolutionary War, like Napoleonic War, Franco-Prussian War, I believe. There's this sort of like hangover of like, we will, there's this romantic delusion, like we will thrust into battle on our horses, and and we'll save the day, and then we'll all go back and drink our beers and be heroes. And it's, and we will stand up with our bugles, and there's just this romantic, because it's all these guys that have never left their village. There's no internet. No one knows anything. And it's, and then he talks about that. He's like, but all of a sudden it's not like muskets. All of a sudden it's Maxim machine guns. And you have horses, but now all of a sudden there are tanks. And he's like, and what was it? He said Napoleon bragged. He's like, I spend 40,000 lives a month. And he's like, there are these battles, and in the first 12 hours, there's 100,000 dead. He's like, these guys have been stockpiling shells for years. I'm gonna have to listen to it again. Man. I'm getting worked up. He's like, they stockpile shells for years, and it's like Napoleon, like his fearful artillery. I know I'm butchering the numbers, but it's like he had these 8-pound and even 16-pound shells, and he could, or cannonballs, and these were devastating, and they could shoot up to like 1,000 yards. And then he's talking about these railway guns, the Paris gun. He's like, these things are shooting shells 1,000 pounds, 91 miles.
Wow.
He's like, there are these big Napoleonic battles. This battle went on for 12 hours. 10,000 people died, and over 20,000 cannonballs were fired. He's like, these other battles, he's like, these go on for 10 days, 30 days, 1.5 million die. 100 million shells are fired. And he's like, as you would get, there's stories about all the battles, how soldiers would, as you get closer to the front lines, you'd hear drum roll fire. So all the artillery, there's so many artillery guns that they're all going off staggered that it sounds like brrrr. And he goes, but on some of the worst battles, like Verdun, he said soldiers noted that this one was different than all the other battles, because as you got closer, it wasn't drum roll fire. They said it sounded, when you're on like not a beach, but more so like a rugged shore, and you're getting closer to the beach, and you can't quite see it yet, but you know how you can hear. Yeah. He goes, that's what it was. There was no indistinguishable. There was no individual artillery rounds. They said you just heard. They said, I think it was Churchill said, he's like, you just hear the roar, and you're like, what is that? You're like, oh, there are artillery shells going off so frequently that you can't tell when one started and the other stopped.
Unbelievable.
Dude, when we need to do Skunkworks first. You got to read Skunkworks. Or listen to Skunkworks. We'll do that. Right. Dude, oh my God. I know people that aren't into history at all that listen to it, and they're like, holy shit. It is, dude, it really is like, it's like, I don't know. It's like teaching like a jock, like, math through using like football and like weights. And they're like, oh, I see. I get it. Right. Anyone that doesn't like history, you're like, I don't want to learn about. You listen to Dan Carlin and you'll be like, oh, okay. Holy shit.
Yeah. I did his bit on the Cold War.
Yeah.
The history of the Cold War. And I loved it.
Yeah. Dude. Whew, oh man. It is just. Hold the descriptions, man. The insanity. It is like they're in this like bunker underground, and like there's a gas attack, and because the gas is denser than normal air, it like floated down into this underground bunker. Oh. And they had all these, it was like a sick bay, so they had, it was like 100 by 4 wide bunk beds, and they all had candles.
Yeah.
And as the smoke was creeping down, it was snuffing out the candles.
Oh.
One row at a, so it was literally death was coming. People were screaming and putting on their gas masks. Some were just punching others and taking their gas masks. And some who were so injured that they knew they weren't going to escape, he said they just flopped down on the ground. Let's get it over with.
Oh.
Dude, that is just one of these things. It's 20 hours of material, and it's not like long-winded, like, oh, that could have been 2 hours. It could have been 50 hours, and I'd still listen to it. It is something that, I mean, really, dude, it stuck with me. It wasn't just like, this is interesting. I mean, I remember listening to it, and I was in like a little bit of a gray area for like a week, because I was just like, holy shit. Like, holy shit. Some of these guys were like 14 years old. Yeah. Holy shit, dude. Man, I don't know why the hell we got into that, but it's
it sounds like great stuff.
Artillery. North Korea.
Yes. That is how we did it.
Yes, that is how it happened. That is the post-game report.
Yeah, I did the slaughter on the mass scale of trench warfare. I get that, and the other stuff, I'll definitely listen to it, because I would love to.
Yeah, dude, yeah. It is... Oh. Do whatever you want, man. I know I'm always sending you books. I'm like, Paul, this is your homework. And I want you to be like, fuck this kid. Stop sending me shit. It's Surprise Kill Vanish was good by Annie Jacobson.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if it's good enough for a podcast episode. Because I did a podcast episode with two guys yesterday, Dale Comstock and Joe Tedeye, who definitely didn't, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, may or may not have worked for the CIA, who may or may not have a ground branch that may or may not be involved in assassination. We kind of went through a lot of it yesterday. I don't know. I think Annie Jacobson's book, I think that could have been like 2 chapters. This is kind of the same thing again and again. You get it. You're like, I get it. No insignia. It's black operations. They report directly to the president. They recruit from Delta Force and SEAL Team 6. It is the pinnacle. It's not the tip of the spear. It's the glint of light on the tip of the spear. It is.
Right.
Yeah. They were in Afghanistan like 4 days after 9/11. Like,
real life James Bond. Then
that's how Dale Comstock. He's like, man, I can't tell you this shit, but he's like, James Bond, like Jason Bourne. He's like, that's what we were doing. You know, having an umbrella that is actually a satellite dish. Like, yeah. Like, holy shit. But yeah, that being said, so I don't know. I'm not sure if it's worth. If you want to, I would, but I mean, I don't think it's not as riveting as like Paperclip. But Skunkworks, I know you said that interests you more.
I love that stuff,
dude. Oh man, the F-117, man, the amount of shit. A lot of the guys at Skunkworks, actually, I won't. Let's save that. We'll save that for next week. That one is. But so let's bring it back to current. What all has been going on between India and China? Because I remember you mentioned that a couple episodes ago, and it kind of went over my head. I was like, yeah, I was just figuring. But then I remember, in my mind, I think I converted it to India and Pakistan, which has been an ongoing thing forever. But you just said China again. Yeah. It's India and China.
You bet. And that's been going on for many, many, many years. But this is the biggest conflict since 1967.
Oh, shit.
So they've got disputed border in the Kashmir area, and 20 Indian soldiers were killed.
Uh-oh.
Think about that. If 20 American soldiers were killed by the Canadians in
Operation Rolling Thunder.
Yeah.
we would blot out the sun with our B-52s.
Well, absolutely right. And what is India going to do? I mean, these are 2 countries with a population of 1 billion plus.
Each. Yeah.
So imagine war between them, 2 nuclear capable countries with 1 billion plus people. They both have massive military force.
Yeah.
Massive. Now, most of it is ex-Soviet stuff.
Sure.
But they do have some really cutting edge technology like the Su-35.
Yeah.
the MiG-29. They do have small numbers of those fighters and attack craft, and what a conflict it would be. I mean,
yeah, China,
they've got to avoid it at all costs. China's doing so much to try and expand their influence, and here's India right on their border, which is why you might have noticed the American diplomacy has shifted with regard to India, because we need India as a counterweight
to China. Yeah, we can't have them falling. Yeah, you're right. That's like propping up West Europe to like keep the Soviet bloc at bay. You're right.
It's not that different, but both India and China have always been Russian clients, essentially, as far as military and alliances go. But the Indians have been looking more and more to the West.
Maybe something will happen, and not in. I don't mean that in the. I don't mean that in like, oh, let's watch what happens. So much as I don't know. It's always interesting to see shifts occur. Who knows? Is India the new? I mean, because it's yesterday's enemies are tomorrow's allies. I mean, we know that with the Mujahideen and Osama bin Laden. I mean, he was on the front page of the New York Times with a quote from Reagan saying, like, America's friend, freedom fighter. And then when we kill him in 2011, there was literally a crowd in front of the White House chanting, Obama, Obama, we fucking killed Osama. I mean, I remember I was living in Valdosta, Georgia at the time, and living in the Pi Cap frat house on Baytree Road, if anyone's down there listening. And I would always go to the gym at like 5 in the morning, and SAE was come out of our door, and they were to the left, and they had a big ass cool like marble lion on like a podium. And my buddy Corey was out there, and I just figured he had been boozing all night, because every once in a while, you know, college town, you go to the gym at 5 a.m. Every once in a while, you catch some stragglers who are still up from the night before. But Corey was a pretty tame guy, and I saw him out there painting the lion, and I was like, at first I thought it was like a pledge, just doing some bullshit, but I recognized Corey's just like gait. I don't know, maybe the way his feet. I was like, Corey, and he looked at me and he like held up a beer, but it was like a Tuesday or something, and I was like, what do you? And as I shifted and the street light wasn't behind it, I could see the light on the lion better. He was painting it red, white, and blue. And I was like, what's the occasion? And he just goes, we got him. And like, he didn't even need to say, like, I instantly understood it. I was like, we got him. And I like went to the gym and I saw some like dude, like some early morning shift. And I like looked down and I was like, we got him. And he's like, we got him. And that being said, so Osama from freedom fighter, America's friend, to we got him. That's how quickly things shift. Quick, 20 years isn't quick, but I mean, it is quick. I'm sorry, I'm not letting you talk. I'm junk. You got to fight back. You got to fight back, Paul. You got to hop in.
All right. I don't know about that, but India has never been real close with the United States, and it could be a huge shift. Think about the marketplace there for American products. I mean, I don't know. I've never been to India, but I know that a lot of it, like China, is really poor and really third world and really underdeveloped.
Yeah.
And there's a lot that could be done there as far as an alliance for America, because India is so similar to China in a lot of ways, not only in their size, not only in their location, but they also are armed with all these former Soviet weapons. India also has a former Soviet aircraft carrier that they finally got onto the ocean. And so they've been struggling with that whole mess, just like the Chinese have. And the Chinese are more advanced, but so similar in a lot of ways. And they could very easily, this thing could go off just like a tinderbox.
I hope not.
20 soldiers. The Chinese did not release their casualties, just said that they had casualties.
I mean, there is a certain beauty to mutually assured destruction in that here we are, 75 years, right? 75 years after 1945. I can't do math. Is that right? 75 years, and it hasn't been World War III yet. Not
right.
saying it's been peaceful. There's been a lot of proxy wars. Vietnam, Russia and Afghanistan, Desert Storm, Grenada,
Korea.
War on Terror, Korea. By no means has been peaceful. But in terms of an all-out slugfest, there is a certain nod you have to give to mutual assured destruction. No one's gone... We've fought, but no one has gone... No one's been swinging for the fences. Because you can't. You can't do it anymore.
Yeah. But the problem with that doctrine with China and India is we're not either side.
Yeah.
We just get wiped out but because of their fight.
Yeah. Well, and because of that, it would be our fight.
Yeah.
And so we would have to be... Shit, man. I bet there's some denied Black Ops shit going on right now.
Oh, I bet you that we would just love to see them skirmishing with each other more and more on the border.
Just get in there and fuck some shit up. It's always beneficial.
They're over here stealing our stuff, our blueprints for our F-35. And anything they can literally get their hands on.
Yeah.
I don't think we're not over there trying to stir the pot, because we certainly are.
Well, we got nothing to steal from them because they just steal our shit.
Right.
But yeah, so you're right. Yeah.
But nevertheless, we could do a lot of harm to them.
Sure.
And we're trying to sell the Indians our F-18s and all kinds of advanced technology. So India would probably be well suited. You know, they have claimed, India has claimed that they're able to track the J-20, the Chinese stealth fighter, the mighty dragon, in this area, as a matter of fact. And I don't know how many of those things exist, less than 20, but they're down there. So that tells you something about how important strategically this little fight is to China, that they have their showpiece stealth fighter down there, and the Indians are claiming they are able to track it with their low frequency radars.
Well, China is also, you never know what's, I guess they're less than North Korea in terms of just bluffing, but don't they have their own knockoff B-2 that is in development?
Supposed to be flying in the next year. But keep in mind, when the B-2 was designed, we're talking about the 1980s.
Yeah, 89, I believe, was...
Now, 40 years later, China's saying, hey, we can do that too.
Yeah, hey, congratulations.
Yeah, 40 years.
Yeah.
And the B-21 will be on the tarmac within the next 12 months.
Oh, yeah.
Which puzzles me, because when did they announce it? Like 2017 or something like that?
The B-21 Raider? Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, 5 years later, we have it?
I imagine they've been developing it since 89. Maybe,
yeah, right.
I think they've probably just gotten a lot better at tightening up the leaks.
Yeah.
Right? Because normally, you're right. Normally it's like railguns. There was really no way to hide railguns. I remember reading about them in 2003 in a Popular Mechanics thing. There's, you can only hide this thing that requires an entire power plant to, man, maybe, I think that's what it is. That's a good observation. Is we announce it, now we have it. I think they've probably just gotten better at plugging the leaks.
Yeah, I think so too. And that thing is going to be such an advance. And what we know about it is a tiny fraction of what it can really do. I think it'll probably have a bunch of loyal wingmen that accompany it. It'll have limited air-to-air capability, tanker capability. As far as seeing it, it'll be as invisible as anything can imagine.
They're probably at a point where it's
D2. Being Reagan's hometown, we get some advantages, and one of them is on Reagan's birthday last year, they flew a B2 over Dixon.
Oh yeah,
and man, is that awe-inspiring!
I would love to see one. I've heard.
Oh wow!
I've seen people comment on Reddit before about seeing them, and they're like, "Dude, it's a UFO."
It is.
They're like, dude, it is. They're like, it's not so much that it's colored black, so much as there is a shape that is absent of light in the sky.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and it's just so spooky and awe-inspiring.
I'd love to.
And silent, total silence. Just.
I'd love to see that thing, man.
I'll have to dig up the pictures I took that day. I got out my biggest lens and got a picture.
Man, that's
really, really cool. So I think that we're going to see that. It's probably flying already, even though they're telling us, well, we'll have a prototype in the next year. Well,
oh, yeah. Absolutely.
It's already at Area 51 or wherever they've got it, Edwards or wherever.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, because the B-2, if I can remember correctly from the documentary I watched, it was at the last moment, and last moment is relative in terms of its development. This could have been the last year of its development. They took it from being a high flying bomber, and they needed it to be able to go in close to the deck. So, which was what the B-1B was also. It's got the swept wings, right? It can come in and then it can do the sprint right deep into the Soviets at, I think they said it can like 200, 300 feet above the ground. Just that thing tearing by at Mach 1, Mach 2. But apparently towards the end, they realized they wanted the B-2 to be able to do this as well. And not necessarily right on the deck, but I think under 10,000 feet, and I could be butchering that. But I believe they changed its capabilities to, they want it to fly at, 40, 45,000 feet, be able to come in really low. And then the Soviets fell 2 years later. But so apparently they want to go back to the original plan with the B-21. And they're just like, this thing's going to be like a 70,000 footer. This thing's just going to float up there. Get that U-2, not quite at the same height as the SR-71, but apparently they just want this thing just way up there. And it's also going to have like node capabilities where it will almost be able to act as like an AWACS.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's
pilotless.
And drone capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
Man, if that's not how Skynet starts.
You're right.
Because how the hell would we track it? How would we track it if it went rogue?
We wouldn't be able to. I guess we'd have to probably send the F-119 out there with its air-to-air.
Yeah, right? It's the only thing that could go find it, yeah. So, have you ever heard of the, are you familiar with the Phoenix Lights, the UFO sighting in,
Oh, yeah,
1997? My favorite UFO sighting, just because it's like, it's a crazy UFO sighting, but it's so, like, less fantastic than all the others, which makes it seem like a little more, I don't know, it's got like feet or legs, I don't know what it's got some like, it's a little more based in reality. Not only that, the like 10,000 independent VHS videos of this thing.
Yes.
And the governor, who I want to try to get on this podcast, I've never seen him on a podcast before, Fife Symington at the time, who was retired Air Force, and he apparently was putting in like requests to the Air Force because he was like, this has to be a UFO, because he was like, this thing, someone said, because it had the shape of a B-2 roughly, it was more geometric, but he said it had the shape of like a B-2, and someone said, oh, you're referring to our B-2 bomber, that's probably what it was. And he said, no, this thing was silent. It was at one point it was moving probably no more than 10 miles an hour.
Right.
And 3, he goes, and most importantly, you could land our entire fleet of B-2s on the wings of this thing.
Right.
He said he held up a newspaper at arm's length and it couldn't cover it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they estimated that it was, I think on the low end, they think it was like 1,800 feet wide. On the high end, up to a mile. But I saw some graphic that is obviously, it's not going to be based in any reality, but I like to suspend my disbelief and run with it. It's called the Northrop Grumman TR-6 Telos, Telos.
Yes.
And it's basically, it's like the same shape as the B-2, but it's something like 500 feet long, like 900 feet wide, I think. And they talk about how it has like active camouflage, so it's like see-through, so you just see the stars. And they're like, and it flies at like 120,000 feet, and they said it just loiters for like days and granted, this is all like fan fiction lore, but I don't care. I take it as fact because I want it to be fact. But it's I love the idea of it. And its wings like fold up for stowage when it comes back onto a couple U.S. bases. But I love the idea. That made me think of like the node thing with the B-21, because they said what this is it was like the middle ground between a spy plane and a spy satellite. It was more maneuverable.
Over Kashmir right now, Darren, to determine what's going to happen with China.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wouldn't be a bit surprised.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't know what. We got our eye because you wanna see if China will unveil anything new. I'm sure the NSA is just going ham right now. I'm sure it's just like an ELINT, electronic intelligence.
Yes.
I'm sure it's just an ELINT buffet right now.
Yeah. I don't. As far as Chinese hardware goes, they've improved so much, but they're still so far behind us. And all the hand wringing in the press about how the Chinese have caught us with the Navy, and they've passed us with the number of ships, and they've caught us with the Air Force on. It's just nonsense.
Yeah, that's driving up. I think that's just to shift public opinion so everyone's cool, and we allot another $100 billion in the Pentagon.
I think you're absolutely right, because I'll tell you what, if I had to bet my life on a J-20 or an F-22, I would have no hesitation.
I would bet me and my loved one's life on it. And in a way, we do. Just by...
We do, but, think about the F-22 is a 1990s technology. The J-20 is very much 2010s, 20-teens. So they're 30 years behind.
1990 on paper.
Yeah.
What 1990? It's not the same as like $1990 because 1990 American cutting edge. Yeah, that is like 2020 China cutting edge.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, is that what you meant to say?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you were saying we were 30 years behind. I was like, wait, no.
Oh no. No, it's the opposite of what we found when we captured the Nazi weapons.
Yeah. We are.
We're 20 or 30 years in advance, and the Chinese are trying to flex their muscles with the J-20 and the J-31 and the aircraft carriers. I'm telling you, they just don't match up. They just don't match up capability-wise. So they can't afford to upset us right now. I don't think. They got too much going on in their own backyard.
To me, that is what gives more credibility. On the whole, I don't think it's very credible, but in terms of relative credibility, that's where I kind of lean towards with the idea of COVID being a bioweapon. The fact the Delta Force and the ground branch guys, they both said they think it is. The former Air Force historians, the Air Force intelligence guys, they all think it is. But also, they are all, like myself, more right-leaning, and you're much more cognitively or unconsciously cognitive dissonance. You're going to say anything that supports the guy you like. So you got to bring that into experience, or not into experience, into the equation. But if we're talking about the TR6 Telos and the Phoenix Lights, why not slap on this tinfoil cap? What would be a better tactical move than to release COVID? Because you can't go toe-to-toe with our military. What better way than it's a low cost? Yeah, because they can boot theirs back up. They're not worried about it. They got 1.5 billion people, and they don't care if whoever dies. They don't give a shit. They know they can get back up to that cheap market, that cheap human labor. Like, they know that they'll always be not like the Ukrainian breadbasket. They're like the Hello Kitty basket of the world. They produce the they produce the shit, and they always know they'll be able to produce the shit, right?
Yeah. But here's what's scary about that. If that were true, if we knew at some level of government that the Chinese deliberately released this to cripple the world economy, we would never be told that. We would never.
You would never be told that. You would never be told that. And that's correct.
Never, because we would never admit that kind of vulnerability.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You would. Yeah, we would not. I was finishing up Surprise Kill Vanish by Annie Jacobson. I didn't know this. Did you know that there was an almost successful assassination on George H.W. Bush while in the Middle East? Well, it was after he was president, but apparently the head of Secret Service, Lou Merletti, got like a heads up from the NSA in the area, who said they picked up some just like keywords, and Lou Merletti was the only one that actually had the authority to shift the whole motorcade. He was the top dog.
Geez.
And so he said, and because it's the Secret Service, everywhere they go, they got 9 alternative routes. So he said, just very, keep it below radar. He's like, we're going to Route B. And they do that all the time. So not even the drivers know if this is real or a test. It's, just keep them guessing. But apparently, we went in afterwards, us and I think the Mossad, we went in with Israel, and we found a big old fucking bomb right under that we were gonna go over, and so they plugged that hole, and then they said it was classified, I guess, up until this book, because they're like, we can't let people know of vulnerabilities.
No.
Yeah, so you're right.
No.
If we knew about COVID, the last thing we're gonna do is say this was them, because that just, the emperor has no clothes, right? All of a sudden, we're not the fortress. We're not America.
That's right. We no longer are, and they steal all our stuff. They're taking over more and more territory all the time. They're threatening American ships and the freedom of navigation. They're buzzing American planes, and now perhaps they're actually reaching out to us individually and making us all sick.
Yeah, potentially. Are they, do they have a hand in the riots going on right now?
I'm sure they do. Just like the Russians.
And just like it, and for anyone saying, oh, that's xenophobic, hey, just like you bet your ass we're over there in India right now. just poke him. Just get some oxygen into that fire. Get it going.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and we're 45 Chinese or 45 American scientists just fired because it came out they were on the payroll of the Chinese government.
Yeah, what about that Harvard biomedical microbiology professor who took $5 million that the payment originated in the Wuhan lab?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Right.
What the fuck is that, man?
Well, we can agree for sure that whatever the truth is about this virus, they're not going to tell us.
We won't know. Not something this big. This isn't a bomb under the bridge. This is, you can't reveal that.
100,000 dead plus in America alone.
117.
The essentially the murder of our economy at its strongest point, maybe ever.
Yeah, but man, from a military perspective, it's a brilliant move.
Oh yeah,
because you wipe out, everyone gets hurt. So it's almost like, you fart and then you don't say who did it. No one knows who did it. It just smells like shit, right? Well, we kind of know who did it. Where did it start? Wuhan. But if you start going down that road, all of a sudden that opens up doors to, was that us? Was that us saying, let's release this and make it look like China? Because if it starts in Wuhan, everyone's going to say, oh, it must be China, right? So it's, once you go down that road, you got to open up to all possibilities. And once you get into intelligence operations, man, it really is just a forest of mirrors. It's what is what, who did what.
I guess I'm just not open-minded enough. I cannot picture the United States releasing a deadly virus in another country and taking no precautions to preventing it from coming here and killing thousands of Americans, wiping out our economy, paralyzing our military. I mean, that's
no, I don't. I mean, I'm with you. I don't want to believe it. I don't know. I'm just, the way I look at it is if we're going to be open to this being an operation like that, you then have to be open to all possibilities. Maybe it's not us. Maybe it's the KGB. Maybe it's Madagascar. Don't sleep on Madagascar. It's whoever, right? Maybe it's a disgruntled guy. Maybe it's some, just sold to the highest bidder. He didn't, necessarily care. Maybe it's just some Harvard guy that's just, he didn't give a shit. He just, who's that double agent for the FBI that was working for the KGB? Robert Hansen.
Yes.
ADX Florence.
He's in Flomax right now.
ADX Florence. Yeah, he's in the clean version of hell. But
yes.
Didn't he apparently do it because he was just good cash?
Yeah,
it wasn't even an ideological thing.
Not at all. It was just business.
It was just cash. That's what I mean. Maybe there's some dude that made this this custom virus, this coronavirus, maybe it was just fucking business. He thought, whatever, we'd use it to, maybe he thought it was like an assassination weapon, like a plutonium dart, like whatever. I'm not going to ask questions. I don't give a shit. It's the black world. Maybe it was a specific weapon, but maybe none of this was what was implied. Maybe something went horribly, horribly wrong. Maybe it was a weapon that was never supposed to leave the lab. Just like we have smallpox at the CDC, and I believe Russia has one at their equivalent. So we do make these weapons.
Sure they do. Yeah, and it concerns me because are they going to hang on to it like we're hanging on to it? I don't trust them, frankly.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the Chinese have got similar stuff with smallpox and TB, and polio,
bubonic plague,
all kinds of Ebola.
I'm sure they do, man. But yeah, it's an odd one to think about because everyone has been so fucked by it. It's really hard to see the strategic, because everyone, even China. So could it have started one way and the operation's botched and they didn't think it would be this bad? Did it mutate? Was it a third party? Was it Russia? Was it Pakistan? Was it someone, let's put it here, make it look like a US-China thing? I don't know. Like, once you start entertaining the ideas of it being like black ops, you kind of, I don't know, credibility kind of goes away because it just opens up the door to everything, right?
You're right. It really, really does. Once you enter that world, everything is dark, and you have to treat all possibilities.
But man, at the same time, if we're willing to take in all these Nazis in 1945, some of them head up NASA. I mean, some of them become like beloved figures. That was just business. Not really. That was national security. But that being said, well, so could this have been we had no choice? Is there something even deeper and darker? And for anyone listening for factual conversation, just tune out now. Was there something deeper? And like one of my favorite ideas is me and my friend sort of created this like faux background story. But the reason why we're still in the Middle East is there's like a Stargate in the Middle East. Some ancient technology, and we're like, we got to go there. And like the only way, the plan was like, okay, we'll invade Afghanistan and then by proxy go to Iraq. How do we get to Afghanistan? And it's not that we planned 9/11 so much as we caught it going through, and we were like, we just let this go through. And it's like, we're gonna let this happen, and it's like, because this will save billions of lives. So it's sort of like, it's a deal with the devil. It's all bullshit, but I don't know. That's one idea I like to entertain.
Not that far-fetched, my friend. I think it's pretty well established that Roosevelt provoked the Japanese because there was no other way out of the Depression economy than war.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds like a pretty radical thing to say, but I bet you if you gave me a couple of days, I could substantiate that statement.
War is the engine of progress, man.
Yeah.
It is. And not only that, we're just going to sit back and just... Technically, we're not going to declare war because Nazi Germany hasn't done anything to us, as the beast is just slowly just crawling over Europe. Like, we're just going to be like, well, they're not touching us yet, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you.
Right.
Did we need a reason to go get in there and be like, hey, like, let's get this over with? And do you sacrifice 3,000 lives in Pearl Harbor knowing that it's going to give us a reason to go over there and stop Nazi Germany and potentially save 1 billion lives? I don't know. I'm glad I don't make those decisions.
I think it was more designed to reboot the economy necessarily, and of course Roosevelt wanted to help England, but that was very much a deal with the devil as well.
Yeah.
No different than what you're talking about.
Yeah.
No more far-fetched.
Yeah, I mean, was 9/11... I don't think when entertaining these ideas, you could do 12 more minutes and at 5:30. Cool. Well, yeah, when I think about 9/11 and the idea of it not being what we think it is. I never think that it was we planned it. It's too intricate. What I think is much more plausible is our $1 trillion surveillance network picked it up and said, why don't we, as someone that has done security at the bar, I've had guys be like, hey man, I'm gonna give you $20 if you don't kick out my like passed out friend. But yeah, sure. So I'll look the other way. So
right.
Could it be where we were like, here's this thing, like, here's this organic terrorist attack that really was designed and planned in the Middle East. We could squash them like bugs. Do we let this go through because that will give us the justification to go do this? And then once we're in the Middle East, we have an excuse to put 500,000 soldiers over there and a huge presence and a $5 trillion checkbook. We'll be able to, whatever the thing is.
So did we get it?
I don't know. Who knows? Maybe we got it. Maybe we got it 5 years ago, and right now we're still just like playing the part.
So
right?
The Ark of the Covenant sitting somewhere in a cave in Virginia?
No, I think it would definitely be in like NORAD or something. NORAD or Tonopah. I think it would be where, Ark of the Covenant, maybe a Stargate. Who knows, man? It's just, fuck it, we'll just keep going down. We're already walking down this road, so let's just start running. Bob Lazar said that the UFO at Area 51 in Groom Lake, he said it was uncovered. It didn't crash, that it was uncovered in an archaeological site. And he said they had 7 or 9, maybe it was 13 out there. He said they were all uncovered over the years. And we would buy them off of other nations. You know, well, shit, man. If you have this thing that is as far advanced to us as Wi-Fi is to the barbarians, and you discover one in Iraq, I don't know, man. And whoever uncovers that is now going to have the technology of the gods. Do you make a 9/11 sacrifice and 5,000 American troops, and we'll go over there, and it's, you bring that thing back over here? Is that what COVID is? We needed, for whatever reason, you had to have something. I don't know what it would be. Once you start to get to this area, you have to acknowledge that, like, you're going in for fun. Like, grab your popcorn. This isn't based in anything.
Well, we better drag in the deep state and the Rothschilds.
And, the Illuminati. Yeah, we get in there deep. Yeah, bring in Apollo. Bring it all in. Let's just dump it all in and stir it around.
We need it all in there.
Yeah.
The United Nations and the blue helmets.
Yeah, man, it's shit. While we're here, we got 9 more minutes. Is there something on like the backside of the moon? Is that what the race was? I like the idea the Transformers take. Transformers 3, Dark of the Moon. You had to get there because there is an alien crash, and we had to get that. What they have their CGI JFK. We need to get there. We need to beat the Soviets.
Well, isn't that the Nazi base back there? That's what I thought.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. Iron Sky. Yeah. No, the idea for Transformers 3, Dark of the Moon, my favorite Transformers, is that there is a UFO crash, or an alien ship crash. Yeah, UFO crash up there, and we detect it, and we need a reason to go up there.
Speaking of sequels, I have to show you this.
Yeah.
Look this behind me. You see the lucite case right there?
Uh-huh.
That is screen used Klingon disruptor from Star Trek Into Darkness.
How the fuck did you get that?
Oh, I just, auctions.
You grease some hands?
Greased some hands, and there it sits between a couple of my favorite Batmen.
That's badass. Yeah, I was looking at the one behind you, the Batman poster, directly behind you. Yeah, I saw your
That's signed by all the cast members.
That's what I thought. I was going to ask that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of my prized possessions.
You got quite the man cave going on there.
I've got a lot of stuff.
Man, as this podcast grows and I can eventually build my own like office studio, yeah, definitely gonna just fill it with a ton of crazy shit. Yeah,
that's what I've got. Right outside my door, I got a life-size Deadpool standing there.
You showed me that. That's badass.
Yeah, I showed you that stuff. So I've got a lot of. I love that kind of stuff.
Hell yeah, man. But yeah, one of my.
There's a few Batman cowls up there.
Yeah, I saw them earlier before you changed. Yeah, yeah, man. You ever listen to Kevin Smith's
Fat Man on Batman.
Yeah. Dude, my brother, my deceased older brother John. But man, back in like 2012, 13, when we drive from Atlanta up to Maryland for like Christmas break, we would always listen to Smodcast, yeah. And dude, we used to just laugh until we were purple in the face because Kevin Smith would tie everything back to Batman.
Right.
You just be like, no, but this is Batman because look, Batman's and he like. And it was so well thought out and it was so sincere that I still just like choke. I'm laughing so hard. Yeah. Jason Mewes and Batman, or Jason Mewes and Kevin Smith, dude.
Oh yeah, Blunt Man and Chronic.
Yeah. Listening to Kevin Smith on Joe Rogan last year was actually like the final domino that pushed me over to like, I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna start a podcast.
Yeah, I'm so glad you did.
Thank you, man. Really am. Thank you. I heard him talking to Rogan, and he was like, "You just gave me a tour of your like new studio." And Rogan was like, "Hey, man, like you got me into this because Smodcast was one of the original. Smodcast was almost like well, Opie and Anthony wasn't really a podcast. Smodcast was like one of the OGs.
Right.
Back
Opie and Anthony, that was radio.
That was XM radio. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Smodcast was the original. But Rogan was like, man, you got me into this. And I remember Kevin Smith saying, because I think I told you, I've been debating making one since like 2015. Gave it a shot in 2017, did like 2 episodes, and was like, nah, it's not for me. But I was listening to Kevin Smith last fall, and Rogan was giving him a tour through the new studio. And he was like, man, this is just a big old playground. They're going on and on. I was just thinking like, yeah, I get it. Yeah, you guys are both rich and get to do whatever the fuck you want. But Kevin Smith goes, man, you built this place with your mouth. You just talked, and it eventually led to ad money and contracts. He goes, for anyone listening to this that's debating starting a podcast, just do it. Because here I am. And I remember listening to that, and I was like, and as you know, my brother John loves him, and that's what helps me deal with his passing. I'm always looking for meanings and symbolism that may not necessarily be there. I was like, fuck it. This is John speaking through Kevin Smith. He's like, for anyone listening to this right now, literally, I was like, God damn it. And he was like, just start it. If you're going to make one, just start it. He's like, me and Joe, we're not smart guys, and look what we've done. And I was just like, still waited like 2 more months, but things were starting to be put in motion. And I was like, it needs to start. It needs to happen.
I'm so glad you did, because you're so good at it. You enjoy it, and you know enough about stuff to keep it interesting and moving all the time. And I really like that. Thanks,
man. I appreciate that. There's nothing I've done that I thoroughly enjoy as much as this. Like, thoroughly enjoy. Like, I've done other things, like gotten a bodybuilding in high school, pre-med in college, Photoshop, writing. But man, if there's something that like I'm like looking at the rest of my day, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I got this. I got that. Dude, nothing gets me where I'm like, oh, fuck yeah, like we're doing the thing. Like, even if it never turns into money, I fucking hope it does. But even if it never does, man, I really do think it's going to be something I do forever. Because I love talking to people. Maybe I just like hearing myself talk. I love talking to people. I love listening to audiobooks and just spitting shit back and forth. It's not scripted. I mean, we went from World War I to the Illuminati on the backside of the moon. Like, in less than an hour.
That's a lot of good stuff to cram into a small piece of time, isn't it?
What? Yeah, that's a conspiracy story, like energy shot. It's right there. It's ready to go. It's like an MRE.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I have had people give me feedback on the last 2 book episodes we did with Operation Paperclip and Raven Rock. One of the guys is like, I know he's a former Ranger. I don't know if he's a former Delta guy. Haven't got him to completely open up, but his girlfriend was on this podcast. She was a professional. She's a professional power lifter. I think she's episode 26 or 27. Melissa Avanesian, and her boyfriend is like a younger Comstock, just a fucking machine. But I messaged him on Instagram. I was like, hey man, will you come on my podcast? And he was like, I'm still in the Army. Yeah, I don't think it'd be best. I was like, okay. But I remember posting the Operation Paperclip, and he commented, he's like, this will be good. And I was like, okay. And then I messaged him. I was like, hey man, I'm having on like Dale and Joe Tedeye on Monday. We're reading Surprise Kill Vanish. I was like, kind of sounds like it'd be up your alley. And he messaged me back, and it's just his hand holding the book. He's like way ahead of you, and I was like, okay, but yeah. So he's enjoyed it. So I know there are some people following. So we got one more minute, but me and Paul, because we share so many similar interests, and if we don't categorize it, it will devolve into Batman and Illuminati. We've been choosing books of similar interest and loosely listening to them and kind of discussing it. So the next one we want to do you want to do it next week, or do you need longer than that?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I don't want a break.
Yeah. Next, we're going to do 1 week from today. We're going to talk. We're going to discuss Skunkworks by Ben Rich. It's about a 12-hour listen on Audible. It's fantastic, completely nonfiction. This is the former head of Skunkworks, and starts with the F-117 and kind of goes through the whole history. Man, it is some real life Area 51 shit, and we're gonna talk about that next week. And so if you want to get that, listen along, and I don't know, we'll talk for an hour or two and just shoot the shit, and then it's Paul's turn to choose a book. But yeah, so it's like a much more cool bro version of like a book club. It's not some Oprah shit. It's all about fighter aircraft and bombs and nuclear bunkers and
Batman
and the Illuminati and the Rothschilds and we didn't even touch on the lizards. The lizards from the star system Draco that are shape-shifting lizard. I can't even entertain that one. That one goes too far for me. I hate it. I'm like, you got to keep a little bit of realism in there just so I can suspend disbelief.
You have to have some grounded.
Yeah, the reptilians from Draco, I can't get behind it. I'm like, what? I don't know. But 5:30, I said we go for an hour, and I got to prepare for my one tomorrow. But next Tuesday, Skunkworks by Ben Rich. Let's do it. And hopefully we won't be dead from global thermonuclear war. So
let's hold out good thoughts for that.
Yeah. COVID. Man, how perfect is it that we talked about Raven Rock last week, and now it's, I bet you the cog machine's turning.
You bet it is.
I bet it is. China, India, North Korea. Yep, I bet you those. If anyone's listening in any of those generators, shout out, save me a spot, and get me a cot. And yeah. All right, Paul Whitcombe, thank you, sir. As always, a fucking pleasure, and I look forward to next week when we will dive deep into the black world of Skunkworks.
Thank you, brother.
Take care, man. Stay safe.